Welcome to the Deep Dive. So today our mission is to really unpack one of the most remarkable careers, I think, in all of professional sports. We're diving into the world of KHABIB Nurmagomedov, the Eagle.
And when you first look at KHABIB, the first thing you see is just this statistical impossibility. I mean, the man retired with a professional MMA record of 29 wins and 0 losses.
29-0.
In a combat sport like that, where anything can happen, a lucky punch, an injury, that level of perfection is, well, it's historic.
Absolutely. And it's not just the undefeated record. He was also the longest reigning UFC lightweight champion, holding that title from 2018 right up to his retirement in 2021.
And he was a pioneer. He was the first fighter from Russia and the first Muslim athlete to ever win a UFC title.
Yeah.
Huge for global recognition.
Right. And that's what we want to get into today, because when you look at the sources, it's clear his dominance wasn't just athletic. It came from this deep foundation of culture and family.
Exactly. So our goal is to go way beyond the octagon highlights. We're going to look at his origins in Daguestán, the personal tragedy that led to his retirement, and his sometimes controversial influence outside of the sport.
And most importantly, we're going to dive into his second act, his coaching legacy, which is really all centered on his lifelong friend and his successor, Islam Makhachev.
It's quite a story.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, at the roots. KHABIB Abdulmanapovich Nurmagomedov. He was born in September 1988 in a small village called Sildi, in what was then the Dagestan ASSR.
And he's from an Avar family. Now, for people who don't know, the Avar people are the largest ethnic group in that region, and they have this very long, very proud martial history. That context is absolutely key.
That martial heritage was basically imprinted on him from day one. He moved to the capital, Makhachev, as a kid, but his real training started at age 8.
Under his father, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, who was, a figure in his own right, a decorated athlete, a Soviet Army veteran. He was truly the architect of everything KHABIB became.
The sources lay it out pretty clearly. He starts wrestling at 12, moves to judo at 15, and then at 17, he comes back to what would define him: combat sambo.
All under his father's watch.
And, if you really want one detail that just captures the sheer intensity of this upbringing, you have to talk about the bear.
Oh, you have to. The story of him wrestling a bear cub when he was 9 years old, it sounds insane to us, but it's this tradition there,
A tradition to build strength and, I guess, mental fortitude?
It certainly does that. And that kind of preparation meant he was this highly decorated grappling specialist before he even turned pro in MMA.
Yeah, he holds the rank of international master of sport in a bunch of different disciplines.
Right. 2-time combat sambo world champion, for one, but also ranked in judo, and then in a couple of arts that might be less familiar to a Western audience, like combat cuerpo a cuerpo.
Which is basically military hand-to-hand combat.
Exactly. And pankration, which is this ancient Greek blend of striking and grappling. So all of these skills formed the bedrock of that relentless pressure he was known for.
So then he goes pro. His MMA career starts in September 2008, and he just explodes onto the scene. He gets 4 wins in less than a month.
Incredible pace. He builds up a perfect 16-0 record just fighting on the regional circuits in Russia and Ukraine. And then finally the UFC comes calling in late 2011.
And once he gets to the UFC, his wrestling just becomes, statistically off the charts.
He holds a record that might be the most dominant in the organization's history. Most takedowns in a single fight.
Against Abel Trujillo.
At UFC 160, yeah. 21 successful takedowns out of just 27 attempts. That's not just winning a fight. That is absolute statistical domination. It was his whole game plan.
And it worked. He ended his UFC run with the longest winning streak in lightweight history, 13 straight victories.
Which, of course, led to the title. He won the vacant UFC lightweight championship against Águila at UFC 223.
But the defining moment of his entire career has to be the defense against Conor McGregor at UFC 229.
Oh, without a doubt. The scale of that event was immense. It still holds the pay-per-view record for any MMA event. We're talking 2.4 million buys. The whole world was watching.
And he won by submission.
Oh.
But here's the little detail that tells the whole story.
I know what you're going to say.
In that whole 4-round battle, the 3rd round was the only round KHABIB ever officially lost in his entire UFC career. One single round.
It's It's hard to even process that level of perfection against the very best fighters on the planet.
People called his style mauling, which is a pretty accurate word for it.
It is. It wasn't about flashy knockouts. It was this smothering, relentless wrestling. He'd get you down, push you against the cage, and just exhaust you with his weight and ground strikes.
Joe Rogan famously called him the most terrifying lightweight contender.
And Randy Couture called him brilliant. It was just brutally effective. 19 of his 29 wins were finishes, TKO, KO, or submission.
And then just like that, at the absolute peak of his powers, it all came to an end. October 2020, after his defense against Justin Gaethje.
An incredibly powerful and, deeply human moment. He retired right there in the octagon.
The reason being, he promised his mother he wouldn't fight again without his father, Abdulmanap,
who had tragically passed away just 3 months earlier from COVID-19 complications after heart surgery. It was a promise he had to keep.
And that was the end of his fighting career, but in a weird way, the attention on him just got bigger.
It really did. He's still the most followed Russian on Instagram. We're talking over 40 million followers. And this is where his role shifts, from just an athlete to this major cultural and political influencer.
Yeah, the sources are pretty clear on this. He's used that huge platform to push what they describe as an ultra-conservative worldview.
Right. There are examples like him strongly campaigning against nightclubs opening in Daguestán, or publicly calling a local play filth.
Which raises a really interesting question for us, I think.
It does, because you have this tension. How do you square that intensely conservative leadership at home with being a global UFC superstar? I mean, the UFC is built on this very Western, often very secular celebrity culture.
That's the conflict, isn't it? He's this huge, globally accepted sports hero, but he's also using his influence to steer his home culture in a very specific traditionalist direction.
And then you have the affiliations. The sources point to some controversial ones, specifically receiving an honorary citizen title and a car from the Chechen leader, Ramzan Kadyrov.
Who is a very, very polarizing figure.
Extremely. So for a global icon like Khabib to publicly accept those kinds of honors, it shows that his status is way beyond just sports. It places him right in the middle of that regional political landscape.
But all that influence, all that weight, he immediately pivoted. He put it all into this legacy project.
Immediately, he bought a Russian promotion, rebranded it as Eagle Fighting Championship, and became the head coach and cornerman for his whole team.
And this whole move was driven by something he calls the father's plan.
Yeah, he's very clear about this. He says his father's dream was never to be some big businessman. It was, and this is a quote, to invest people.
It's a mentorship model that's built on just this intense familial loyalty. The story behind it is fascinating. His father was one of the first educated men in their village. So around 1999, he brings about 15 sons of relatives and friends to Makhachev.
And just takes them in. He gets them into school, college, university, and trains them like army morning and night in the gym he built at their home.
The idea was to create this self-sustaining system, a legacy-to-legacy chain, as the sources put it.
Exactly. The champions he creates, once they're successful, they're expected to turn around and help the next generation. It's about brotherhood and a shared vision, not just, talent scouting for a gym.
But doesn't an approach that's so insular, so familial, doesn't that carry a risk? I mean, compared to fighters who go to these huge mega gyms in the U.S. and train with all sorts of different styles, could they develop a blind spot?
That's a fair question. And I think the counter argument would be that the deep, lifelong bonds and the discipline you get in that environment, it provides a mental edge that you just can't buy.
A different kind of strength?
A different kind of animal, yeah. And the clearest proof that the system works is Islam Makhachev.
He is the undeniable fulfillment of that plan. Khabib says their bond is a 25-year brotherhood. Same school, same coach. He said, "We are more than just sparring partners or teammates. We are family."
And the training produced almost identical results. Like Khabib, Islam is a world champion in combat sambo. He's got a dominant 23-1 record in the UFC and holds the second longest active win streak in the division.
But carrying that label, the next Khabib, that has to create an unbelievable amount of psychological pressure. It's not just about winning. It's about trying to replicate perfection.
It absolutely does. Yeah. But Makhachev has always seemed to embrace it. I mean, Khabib even told the story of his father's prophecy that he said, Khabib is going to be champion, and when he retired, Islam will come and take the belt.
And Makhachev himself said it. I want to be the next Khabib. I want to smash all my opponents like Khabib too. So that drive to honor the plan is clearly what fuels him.
And it all came together in October 2022. Makhachev submits Charles Oliveira, wins the UFC lightweight championship. He becomes the second Muslim UFC champion. The belt stayed in the family.
But he's not just a copy, is he?
Yeah.
The sources point out some evolution in the style.
No, he isn't. His striking is considered more fluid, maybe more advanced than Khabib's was. He has the same world-class grappling 11 submission wins, proves that. But he blends the striking and wrestling transitions maybe even more seamlessly. He's his own man, an elite fighter.
So to sum this all up, we've traced Khabib's journey from the mountains of Daguestán to global superstardom, an undefeated icon.
We've seen how his life after fighting is completely governed by this very personal, very systematic father's plan, investing in people, not just profits.
And we've seen the direct result of that plan in Islam Makhachev taking the throne.
And I think the really critical takeaway is just how rare this is in modern sports. This isn't just a great fighter retiring. This is a championship philosophy, a training system, and a succession plan all executed with this incredible familial dedication.
He didn't just retire. He basically became the operational commander of a sporting dynasty.
That's a great way to put it. It's a profound contrast to the very individual, often mercenary nature of most pro sports careers today.
Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you to consider. In a sport like MMA, which is so dominated by intense personal rivalries and individual success, what is the true, long-term power of building a disciplined, lifelong brotherhood like this? One that's centered on a shared vision, a legacy built on investing in people rather than just winning titles. How durable is a system built on loyalty when the rest of the world runs on dollars? Something to think about until our next deep dive.